Yo, Nick from BioGear here. 2021 is finally the year we get new MacBook Pro upgrades, and I am so excited for the hardware changes in these machines, and that's what I'm going to be covering in this video. All the performance numbers I'm not really going to touch in this video, but we're going to stick with hardware changes because there is a lot to dive into on this one. Okay, so in my opinion, this laptop is essentially a throwback as well as the right step forward coming off of the 2015 MacBook Pro. Several of the ports that we had back in 2015 on that MacBook Pro have made their way into this new 2021 MacBook Pro. So this MacBook Pro is kind of like the successor to the 2015 MacBook Pro that we wish we had back whenever the 2016 MacBook Pro came out over there, and we lost like all the ports and gained this weird little touch bar. It was kind of an odd step forward for them going from the 2015 to the 2016. I keep seeing articles and information about how there's a gentleman named Johnny Ive that was working for Apple, really wanted to make a thin machine, so they did that, and it ended up being to the detriment of that laptop because the butterfly keyboard was just atrocious. People that do any kind of professional work do not like having to plug in SD card readers and stuff through the USB ports. It sucks. It's just not how we envision having a pro device for professionals. Nevertheless though, Apple's coming back very strong on the right foot with this new 2021 upgrade. We're getting all the stuff that we really wish we had back in 2016 onto the new MacBooks. Finally, keyboard's absolutely fantastic on this model. Build quality is just like Apple's usual top tier aluminum builds. Screen's one of the biggest upgrades this year, as well as power for the processor. I mean, across the board, every piece of hardware on this computer is just an upgrade over last year's and plenty more before that if you're comparing to the 2015 as well. Okay, so starting off with the screen, this is one of my most excited points on this computer, and it is just beautiful. This is the mini LED display. The new resolution's kind of funky. It is nearly 4K at 3456 by 2234, 3456, 2234. Very odd set of numbers to make a display like that, but this is what we have now, and it's very sharp, incredibly sharp. It is mini LED, so the brightness is amazing. I mean, at nearly 1,000 nits of brightness under normal use case, as well as having all those nice local dimming zones and stuff too, which they did a fantastic job on here. The blacks look super black, and the colors and contrast and brightness is just fantastic on this model. So if that wasn't enough, because I was expecting that we'd probably have 60 Hz screens, Apple gave us 120 Hz ProMotion, which when you just scroll between things is so smooth, and I wish I had every screen in my entire existence around me be 120 Hz or better. High refresh rate is always one of my favorite features in a screen, and I thoroughly enjoy using anything that's nice and smooth like that. Anyway, along with the high refresh rate that Apple gave us this year, they also gave us adaptive refresh rate. So when you're sitting idle on your desktop, the refresh rate dynamically adjusts based on what you're doing, and it ends up being a big battery saver as well, because high refresh rates, if you've ever seen anybody's tech reviews at all, they do burn more power having to constantly refresh the screen more often. And so when you have adaptive refresh rate like this, that is a massive power saving benefit as well. So now, instead of being fully locked at like 120 Hz or hopefully in the future 240 Hz, the laptop will now scale down that refresh rate when you're not using it, and you will still get a battery life benefit as well as having high refresh rate when you need it. All in all, it's really nothing but amazing hardware changes on this screen, except for this disgusting notch. I cannot stand the notch. I wish it wasn't there. If we had this laptop screen without the notch, it is actually more usable, as I'll try and demonstrate later as well. All right, so the screen's obviously a big win this year, but following up with that, we do have the changes to the keyboard, namely the exit of our beloved touch bar. Apple finally did away with the touch bar and brought in a set of full-size function keys, as I'm sure y'all have seen, and there's really nothing but positive notes to say about it as well. I mean, the Magic Keyboard's really good snap, great typing experience. I'm a big fan of them, so I like to type on them all the time. So other than that though, we do have Touch ID in the top right corner of this computer as well. The button scheme has changed. We now have a circle and a square background, and it's fast. It's really fast actually. So if you shut your screen off and then you go to log in, all you do is just tap it and you're lightningly fast in. Following up though on the changes with the keyboard, this year we do have the black background for your keys, and I will say Apple did a very good job picking the paint color out for this, and I mean that because the finish is almost identical to the keys themselves. Unlike the Razer Blade where you have the black aluminum chassis with the black plastic keys, there is a little bit of a contrast there, and so the keys do kind of pop off the keyboard a little bit. On this one, they blend in really well. The keys blend in with that background, and it almost really reminds me of like when you're typing on a virtual keyboard or phone. I use the Samsung phone and I have no keyboarders turned on, so I basically have floating text on a black background, and that's kind of what I'm getting reminded of here with this laptop. Is it game changing? No, absolutely not. It's not. I had no problem with having the aluminum background on the keys here on the older MacBook Pro models, but I don't even know if I can say that that's like something professionals even care about, but it is a change, at least visually, so That's good, I guess. All right, so wrapping up the inside and user experience on this laptop, speakers are phenomenal. They are realistically some of the best speakers on any laptop out in existence. They are very loud, extremely clear. I mean, my first impression with these speakers was that I was using them at my parents' house when I unboxed this thing. And when they heard me playing music out of this laptop, they were like, "Are you using a speaker or is that the laptop?" And we were all just shocked that this thing produces such amazing, clear, and loud sounds out of such a nice size package. I mean, Apple really knows how to do speakers, and they come out amazing on this model, literally cream of the crop. Touchpad, I believe, is unchanged from the last 16-inch MacBook Pro. We still get just a giant glass surface here with Force Touch trackpad, and it's great. I haven't looked into seeing if the dimensions are any different from the last model or if this is a brand new part number. It might be new just because of the mounting into the device, but overall, I don't really see any new differences between this one and the last generation, which is a good thing though. Force Touch trackpads are amazing. The last and final change I have that's gone on the inside is that we now do not have MacBook Pro Text down here underneath the screen. It has now moved into its new home, being underneath the laptop. The text is now embossed into the bottom of the laptop clamshell, and if you do scan one of these devices, I'm sure that that's going to be cut out, kind of like it was on the XPS laptops as well. Now, as far as exterior changes go on this laptop, we still have an absolutely beautifully CNC'd aluminum package here. We do have flatter top edges and bottom edges, whereas the older 13 MacBook Pros over here had more of a curved shape to the top and bottom sides, leading up to a more chamfered edge on the side, trying to make the laptop look thinner, I'm assuming. And here though, no, we still have just a full flat block of aluminum. It's literally just a giant aluminum brick, and I'm a big fan of the design here. The only thing I didn't really care for was the rounded bottoms here on this laptop, but honestly, if they didn't do that, it wouldn't give you much of a place to like get your fingers in and grab something to lift this thing off the table. If this was literally just a giant flat block that was just as blocky on the bottom as it was on the top, yeah, it'd probably be a little more difficult to actually get under something and lift it off the table. So I see why they had to do it, but yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the rounded corners on this one. So on the bottoms and technically sides of this laptop, we do have the cutouts for our air intakes for this laptop. Apple did put in their keynote that there was also a bit of an intake in the middle of this laptop as well, and exhaust ports are on both the edges. So this laptop will be able to breathe better than most laptops when placed on a bed, but I'm not going to say that you should ever place your laptop on a bed. It's just not good for airflow constraints. But if you're going to do it, it's better that the air intakes are on the sides than they are on the bottom, so you don't choke out your machine. In addition to that too though, these M1 chips are so efficient that I never really hear the fans run anyway, so yeah, I guess this is probably one of the best laptops to use if you're laying in bed watching a movie. All right, so moving on though, on our ports, we do have a Thunderbolt 3 port over here, HDMI 2.0. HDMI 2.0 is good for 4K 60 Hz. And then last but not least, we finally have our SD card reader back. I'm so thrilled that SD card reader is back on these machines because I always had to use an external SD card reader on that machine anytime I'd go to edit, and that just needs to be here if this is a pro machine, honestly. Flipping this thing over though, we do have two Thunderbolt 3 ports and our headphone jack, and finally, my favorite MagSafe feature. I am so glad that this port is back. It's cool to me, it's easy, it's convenient, and I never thought that they should have got rid of it in the first place. But hardware on this thing is just absolutely beautiful. This laptop is a work of art. The parts and everything that go into this laptop make it one of the most perfect laptops that I've seen ever. I mean, we get really cool technology in the screen. Speakers are amazing, keyboard's great, touchpad's amazing, battery life is great, and the battery is huge. And it's all wrapped up in a nice, thin, beautiful CNC aluminum chassis and in a space gray finish as well. So I'm so happy that Apple went the way they did with these new MacBooks, and I'm going to be looking forward to a lot of good service out of this machine as well. Also want to say though, power cords for these laptops have some of the nicest braided cables I've ever seen. These things do not seem to have any problem with weird training or rolling up, and I mean, this honestly is just a super nice cable, and I'm glad that it's not like attached to the power adapter like it used to be. We do have USB-C ports, so if you ever do end up breaking this cable, you can just go buy another one, but it is 50 bucks, so don't do that. Once again, I'm just thrilled with all the changes. This machine's beautiful. Performance isn't really my thing, so I'm not going to get into it. I know there are plenty of other YouTubers that touch on performance, so you may want to check out their videos for how this thing works in rendering and software operating tasks, but for me, with the hardware focus, bon appetit, dude. This thing is just absolutely delicious. All right, that about wraps it up for the hardware coverage. If you did like the video, please do leave a like before you go. Subscribe if you haven't already too. I've got new videos coming out pretty soon. We will be skinning this thing too, and I'll be going over all the accessories that I use to protect it every day when I use it. And also give me some tips on how to get the most value out of this thing when you use it and when you sell it. So thank you for hanging out. I'm Nick. Have a good one.